All right, everybody. Welcome, one and all, to the TOME RPG charity auction live stream events. I am Chris Niosi, the head honcho of all things terrain of magical expertise, creator, project lead, animation writer, man of all things. It is a lovely 11:02 a.m. Pacific Standard Time over here in sunny California on June 30th, 2019. My God, half this year is over already, and I can't even believe that. I am joined by not just one, but two, in fact, of the main development crew of the Tome game. If they would so enjoy to introduce themselves, please.
I shall. I'm Mike Prinke. I am the lead programmer for Terrain of Magical Expertise. I make the thing go.
And I'm Scott Gowan. I'm the general sort of game design, balance design, and spreadsheet goblin of the crew.
I don't think you've ever used spreadsheet goblin around me, but you know what?
Yeah,
I'm going to accept that.
I'm trying to diversify my titles.
I mean, I'm finding a lot of people seem to like big goblin energy, who are friends of mine as of late. So I'm just gonna roll with that. Cool.
Be more specific and call you a spreadsheet kappa because they're long arms.
I don't know. They do weird butt stuff. So.
Wow. Oh wow.
Okay. Fair enough.
We're good. All right. I'm gonna turn you guys down just a touch in the audio level. For those of you who don't know, just to give you all a refresher, so this past Tuesday, on the 25th of June, we decided to do another special event for opening up an opportunity for some of the people that didn't get the chance to have their own original character put into the Terrain of Magical Expertise RPG from our original Kickstarter that we did almost 2 years ago now. We're fastly approaching the anniversary of that again, which is insane to me. And so I thought that another fun way to do to give away one of those slots would be to do a charity auction. So thanks to some suggestions, I managed to find a lovely New York-based charity function called New Alternatives. They are a function that basically provides support and relief to struggling LGBTQ plus youth, homeless and otherwise. It helps them out with a lot of things. They're a wonderful cause. We have a link to their website and their Twitter in the video description. If you want to go to newalternativesnyc.org or twitter.com/newalternatives. They're a lovely charity organization if you might be interested in contributing to them directly. So this auction, the prize of this auction that we also have our eBay link to in the video description below. The prize for this auction is going to be an equivalent of basically the $200 original reward tier prize from the Kickstarter that we did. So the winner of this will receive a fully animated enemy character that will appear in the finished game to be fought against by the Dandy Alliance and all our heroes and all that. Which is very exciting. Of course, we had our fan art contest a couple of months ago, and that went very well. And so we thought this would be a fun idea. As you guys can see from the total on the screen, we are currently up to a whopping $770 as the current highest bid, which is lovely. Hoping that will climb in this last hour. The auction will be over at 12 noon PST, so in roughly 55 minutes and counting. But yeah. So, and we thought it'd be fun to just do a little quick live stream. We haven't done an update stream like this in quite a while, I think, so I thought this would be kind of fun. And Mike and I were planning on doing it. Scott happened to be available today, which was good. And, yeah. Sadly, our assistant programmer, Mr. Nathan Lindley, is not available. He is busy with some other things today. He sends his regards and love to you all. And I'm sure we'll be making fun of him in the meantime. No, that's not true.
I would never. He is hard at work.
No,
he's been. I've gone as far as to call him the MVP for a couple straight months now.
Yeah, he's a good
Well-deserved title.
He's a good boy. He works very hard. We miss him dearly. But yeah, so I guess to start things off, a story to relay. We had a very interesting technical snag that we hit over the course of, I would say, mostly May, that has now finally been contended with, and we've been able to kind of, on the programming end, that is, that we managed to get back on track with. That was kind of a massive pain in the ass, to say the least. And it all started when we had a quick build of the game that we were working around with, and Mike exported for us. And I, at the time, had the lovely and talented Mr. Devin Mack, voice of Raccoon, visiting my house at the time. And I was like, oh, I just got a new build of the game. I'm going to test it real quick. Do you want to take a look? And he's like, yeah, sure. And so I open up the game, and I go into one of the levels, and for some reason, suddenly, many of the fan-submitted characters from the Kickstarter that I've spent all of 2018 working on were appearing in the game as some garbled, Missing No-esque textures. Like just big blocks of static and pixels and weird glitchy type of things. And I was like, Mike, what happened?
It really did look like Missing No was eating our game. Yeah.
So then I was like, Mike, please help, please fix. What do?
So for the majority of the time that I've been working on it over the last few, okay, I need to back up a second here. So I do most of my testing in Unity's play in editor feature, right? Unity has like a little play button that you can press, and it'll allegedly jump you right into the game, right there inside of your editor window. And then you can inspect things and debug things, and it's really convenient, allegedly. But the problem is that there are some issues that tend to emerge only when you do an actual proper standalone build, and this was one of them. Unity has a limit of 4 gigabytes of textures in any given build. It can't address any more than 4 gigabytes of textures. And with the amount of characters and monsters and things that we have imported over the last however many months it had been since we had done another standalone build, we went right past that point. We managed to get, except it didn't look like it, because if you inspected the folders in like Windows or something, it would show that the entirety of Tome's asset folder is less than like half a gig of space. So how could the textures be 4 gigs?
Because just to cut in for a second, while we do have several hundred unique characters in the game, they're not massively huge file sizes necessarily. I mean,
most of them are not.
Yeah, I mean, like certainly there's some special effects that are kind of heavy on on megabytes or whatever. But for the most part, as some of you guys may or may not know from watching a lot of the animation live streams, I was doing everything in Flash, and SWF files, which are Flash movie files, tend to not be massively consumptuous. And even the amount of like actual image files that we had, like for instance the talking portraits and everything, like the headshots or whatever, like those are exported as PNGs, but even then they're not massive amounts of megabytes or anything. So this was very perplexing, and we were like, why is this happening? It's not like we're working with like these highly detailed million polygon 3D models or something. Like, what's the deal? So
yeah, this was a what the hell is going on with these file sizes kind of situation. So I look at like the build logs for it, and that kind of shows us what space we're really taking up, as opposed to the amount of space that Windows and Unity were telling us that it was taking up. And that wound up being 6 gigabytes of textures. And the whole reason that we blew past that limit was because we had gone from just Chapter 1 characters to characters all the way up through Chapter 4 in between the last couple of like monthly builds. So Yeah, that was our first experience with the majority of the game's content imported and built. It wound up being pretty frazzling. We identified a potential fix really quickly, which was to try and pack everything into asset bundles, which are kind of like little external zip files that Unity can reference for assets, and that kind of makes it able to address more than 4 GB of textures. But what we wound up finding out was that GAF, the utility that we use to import Chris's textures, what that basically does is it takes and turns the Flash characters into an atlas full of sprites, and then rigs it up to like a paper doll kind of system, very similar to something like Spriter, if you've ever heard of it, or Spine.
It kind of takes, again, for those of you who may have seen the animation streams, it takes all the individual like pieces of the characters, models that I draw, like the different arm positions and heads, and each individual thing that I draw that I kind of connect together, like for a model for each character. It takes each of those things individually, splits them up, and then kind of calls upon them. It translates the Flash file into data and kind of calls upon each of those individual things to make the finished looking assets, like the way that you would see where, like, at the end of the stream I'd play like all the animation for like, here's what the characters look like and everything. So
it's animating them in a way that's consistent with the way it gets animated in a Swift file, right? Instead of doing frame by frame animation with like a sprite sheet the way that you would normally think of like a 2D game doing it. And that saves a lot of space. Except it doesn't save a lot of space if GAF is not constraining the atlas size for all of those images to a power of 2, which we realized it wasn't doing. We were getting really weird resolutions out of these, sometimes like 1366 by 1211 or something like that. Like that's not an advisable size for an image in a game. You want them to be powers of 2 for a lot of different reasons, and that's the sort of thing GAF was just spitting out by the dozens. So you would look at these, and if you changed the settings for the import and made it a power of 2, even if that wound up inflating the size of the image and adding like a lot of extra empty padding to the atlas, like just extra space around the bits and pieces of the character and their visual effects, like even if it increased it by like double the texture space in terms of pixels, it would often be a quarter of the file size, just because it would actually apply compression to the image. So, like, I basically wound up spending a week or 2 weeks going around fixing all of these GAF imports so that it would compress these images from, like, 12 and 18 and 56 megabyte files to, like, 2 megabyte files. Much smaller, much more manageable textures, and now, to make a long story short, we've taken 6 gigabytes of files and crunched it down to less than 3 gigabytes of files, and there's no longer a big problem. But for all of that time, everything was showing up missing no. There were just random characters would have these garbled textures. There would be garbled textures inside of the UI. There would be garbled textures just all over the place. Oddly enough, not with any of the scenery. And it was so strange because we were like, we are sure that none of these are that big, and then they turned out to be that big. So, lesson for all you people who might be trying to use GAF, definitely check and make sure that it's outputting powers at 2. Don't take it for granted that it's doing that.
Yeah, it was a weird situation for a good like 2 to 3 weeks. We were trying to figure out, and thankfully it has now been now been conquered, and so now we're back to doing all of our kind of general tasks of everything. For those of you who might have missed out on our update video last weekend, I am continuing to work on the cutscene choreography. I'm actually nearly done with my full pass of all that stuff for all the main story stuff in the game. And I was hoping to actually try and have it all finished by the end of this month, but I got a little distracted by a certain other charity thing that was going on for a solid week and just finished up yesterday and raised $3 million, by the way. Massive shout-outs to all the people at GDQ because, holy Jesus. Nonetheless, I've been doing that.
They provide their own shouts. Thank you very much.
And Scott has been continuing to do balance work on the statistics and everything for the game. And then Mike has been back to working on just cleaning up other glitches and things, etc., for just the whole entire build that we're trying to make for all the Chapter 1 worth of content and everything. And
mostly debugging my way through Chapter 1.
It was so funny too because as soon as you were able to finish or dealing with whatever the hell this was going on with this texture glitch and everything, as soon as you got back to bug stomping again, you were like, oh, I just solved 10 issues in a night. And I'm just like, oh yeah, wow, this really did hold us up, and now we're just right back to normal again, which is lovely. So
yeah. It did a lot of things for my mood when we got past that hump. It was a big improvement to get 5 or 10 issues done in a night instead of one.
Yeah.
Half.
Just real quick to address a couple of questions in the chat as well. Neon Striver asked, was this auction originally going to happen or planned, or did this happen because of the charity? Both. I was planning on doing an auction as one of the eventual events for giving away one of the other fully animated enemy characters. And I was thinking about having it be congruent to a charity, and so New Alternatives was a good fit. So I went with them, and of course, like I said before, half the proceeds will be donated to their cause. And if any of you guys out there who may or may not be contributing to the auction itself, if you'd like to contribute to New Alternatives directly, again, a link to their website is in the video description below. Let's see. How much time is left from Cloud Lightning? Currently, 41 minutes remain. So we're going to be hanging out with y'all till then, of course. And then White Oak and Lonely Mimikyu were asking about if we have any new characters to reveal. Not for this stream, but probably in either the July or more likely the August monthly update, we'll be revealing another Net King, of which perhaps you guys can maybe determine by process of elimination who it is, since there's only 2 others left as far as the 4 regional Net King overseers and all that. So stay tuned for details, and we will be continuing to reveal other characters down the line. But yeah. Scott, do you have any stuff you wanted to talk about in terms of what you've been up to as of late?
I guess as far as the balance has been going, that's been kind of moving along at a pretty smooth clip. We had some builds internally that were a little too difficult. Then we had some builds internally that were a little too easy. I think we're hitting that nice Goldilocks middle with what we have right now. The Chapter 2 stuff is, for the most part, done. There's a little bit of work I want to keep working on there. I guess one of the primary things is, let's see.
Well, just to explain a little bit too, when you talk about balance, for those of you who don't know what we're talking about, it's in reference specifically to kind of the more technical back-end side of combat stuff in terms of the game's progression, because when it comes to RPGs, making sure that stats in terms of enemies' attack power, defense power, level of HP, etc., those kind of things are important so that the progression of your whole entire playthrough of the game doesn't have these insane difficulty spikes or doesn't get too cheap or too easy at various points. We're trying to find a nice sort of middle ground with pacing out everything and making it work and all that.
I guess to go a little bit more behind the curtain on that, the way that Tome is laid out, White Hat has the potential to become very strong very quickly. Various party members kind of drop in and out depending on which days you're on in game. So making sure, and of course, certain days past a certain point in the game can be played in different orders. So making sure that all of the enemies that you face can provide meaningful challenge and reward is, kind of my biggest goal biggest goal and constant objective is, I guess, what I should say, for my work on this project.
Yeah, it's interesting, yeah, because having this sort of semi non-linear thing where you can choose like certain levels that you want to play in a certain order, and giving you like the freedom to do that, like it makes it a little bit more challenging in terms of what's fair, but also because you have sort of predetermined party members that will hang out with you and join you along different missions and everything. That's kind of been a big help in terms of like, okay, like say for instance, like in this level, when you go on this mission, you have Nylock and Flame Girl as your partners. So like, balancing out the amount of enemies that they have like a type advantage against or a disadvantage against in a way that like is satisfying but also still challenging. So you're not just kind of like going through the motions or whatever. Like that's kind of what we're trying to hit and all that. So yeah.
Yeah. So I've pretty much wrapped up. For the time being, I've wrapped up my work on week 1 with it. When we're kind of like going through more of the standalone builds, we'll probably like do a 3rd or 4th revisit on those for the alpha version of the game. Week 2 has everything laid out there, from backers to enemies to currency. Week 3 is what Nathan and I have kind of... Well, actually, Nathan has finished doing the AI for just about all of the standard enemies. And by standard, I mean like monsters, backers, and most of the bosses, right? Is there anything... I don't think there's... Chris, do you know what else?
It's trickier to identify what he hasn't done because he's actually done so much.
Yeah.
We keep having to touch base with him, and he keeps having to correct us on what he has and hasn't done.
Yeah, he always... Actually, I've gotten this much done. I just finished this thing, like, yesterday in, like, 2 hours, and I'm like, Jesus, man, how do you do it? Yeah,
We'll basically go to, like, ask him to do something, and then he'll have already done it, so... So with all of the AI laid out, for week 3, that's kind of the first thing that I'm going to be jumping into after the live stream.
Yeah.
Kind of going through. There's a few shakeups in terms of the progression in week 3, so I'm kind of excited to jump into that. And I don't want to give away too much, but there's it gets a little more complicated there. But I'm excited to go and tackle, balancing all of that. And then after that, week 4 has actually like my favorite spread of various enemies and bosses and stuff. So that's the one that I really, really want to get into.
Things get crazy in the second half of the game. So there's a lot to look forward to, and we'll probably have some vaguish details about each of those things when we go into the 3rd and 4th quarter update about each of the each of the other 2 of the 4 regions and everything. So, I'm gonna link in in the stream chat real quick. Excuse me, and I'll retweet this on my Twitter. Somebody was asking what the garbled texture stuff actually looked like, and Mike just provided a visual aid of that. It's a little bizarre looking, but this is kind of what it looked like. I've just posted a link in the chat below, and if you check my Twitter, I've retweeted it from Mike's as well.
I almost want to find a way to use this. I almost wanted to find like a way for like to have a quest where hackers are going around like scrambling everybody's graphics, and they're like, yeah, everything works fine, but I can't see crap.
was even a thing at first. At first, when Max saw it as I was playing through, he's like, "Oh, is this intentional? Is like are Raccoon and the Troublemakers like really doing this stuff?" And I'm like, "No, that's not what's supposed to be happening here." Like, but
I would love it if we came up with that idea.
If there's a way to like get that into a font pack, though, like that could be.
Oh, you can. Yeah, you can make a garbled font. It's not that tough.
I'm just saying, like literally rip the graphics we have there, and then like use that to create like a TSS file or whatever they are.
It's like that. It's like that fans' interpretation of the like WD Gaster kind of like creepy stuff with Undertale, like a lot of the fan theories and everything.
Yeah.
This is something else. Nonetheless. Okay. So we're about close to the halfway point here. Currently, there's about 33 minutes left. Still at 770 on the top auction. So here's something that a couple of things actually, because they involve both Mike and I, as it turns out. Both of us have to move.
Yes. Both of us have to pack up all of our stuff and go somewhere else.
Yeah. I've been living in California for about 5 years now. I think by tomorrow it'll have been 5 full years I've been living in California, and been staying out in the Sherman Oaks area. And my roommate Hannah. She works a decently ways away, and so she's barely ever home, more or less. So she decided ultimately that she was going to sell the place, and so it was more or less time for me to be packing up the wagon and moving on. So I was like, all right, well, I guess that's it. So I started hunting for places nearby because, of course, I need to still do a lot of my work nearby within the greater Los Angeles area, as it were. And first I was having some trouble finding anything on my own. And then by happenstance, another lovely member of the Tone Development crew, who's been around since the series, Weston Durant, Kadjit, decided that he was good with moving out as well from his current place. And we determined, because I've known Wes for I think at least a full decade, maybe longer by this point now. Yeah. And we were like, okay, well, I don't think we drive each other insane. I think we could make decent roommates, and it's a load off because it would not cost nearly as much to split with another person after all. So thanks to his help, we managed to find a new place, and probably a week or two after Anime Expo, I'm going to be carting all my stuff over, and thankfully it's not too far away from where I am right now. So that's going to be a little bit of a discrepancy in my time working on things, but I am attempting to get as much as I possibly can. Done within July. So I can still continue to meet a lot of the milestones that I'm trying to hit. And as it just so happens to be, Mike also has to move within July.
Yep. Midway through July, there's going to be people taking all of my stuff, carting it away in a truck, and dropping it in a different state completely.
Yep.
I've been living in Illinois for the last 3 years now, I think. 3, 9, 8, 7, 6. Getting up to 4. It would be getting up to 4. So it's like 3.5 years I've been here. The last 2 of which have been working on Tome. And the reason why I am moving is because I've got a new bit of full-time employment. It's a little bit sensitive to talk about in detail right now. There will be more details about it as time goes on, but I'm not intending to leave Tome behind, just so you're aware. It's probably going to end up being a situation a lot like Scott, where my full-time work is something else, and then I use spare time to work on Tome. Very, very, very likely, at least. I'll tell you where it's at when I get a few more details about that. Just it's a little bit sensitive. It's not the government, thankfully. It's not. I'm not going to work at Homeland Security. That's my sister. Uh, but yeah, it's a pretty exciting situation. It wasn't something that I was really looking for. It was the sort of thing that I would have been looking for like months from now when Tome is comparatively closer to launching. Um, but it was this kind of thing where a couple of friends recommended me for positions at companies. I got job offers out of it, and since those aren't going to wait around for me, I kind of have to. I kind of have to take it while it's there.
Yeah.
We've internally talked about it a lot and figured out what we're hoping to do about it. That's contingent on a couple of things settling out with the new job yet, but we're very optimistic about that.
Yeah, and I guess kind of because part of the reason why we wanted to talk a little bit about this, not in too much detail, but just to go into some of the basics, is because, our kind of whole mantra, I guess, for our work on this game has been, we want people to transparently know what it is that we're doing and where we're at with everything. We don't. Kickstarters, people have become very, very pessimistic, understandably pessimistic about the production of them, and we never want people to think that we're like pulling one over their head, to put it lightly, and because we are constantly the four of us in particular, myself, Michael, Scott, and Nathan, we are constantly working on stuff. We are still a very small team of people. We're four guys trying to make a small-ish RPG, which is no small task. And the Kickstarter funds were a huge boost in allowing us to actually be able to do this. And it's now been, I think, in total, because we started on the prototype demo at the very beginning of 2017. So it's now been 2.5 years that we've all collectively, like this team has been working on the TOME RPG, even before like we officially got the Kickstarter budget and launched that and everything. And I've been glad that in all that time, we've all been able to support ourselves, through not just the Kickstarter funds, but just from like my voiceover work and Nathan and Scott having other jobs as well, and the time that everybody's put forward, But when this opportunity came up for Mike, certainly I was nervous for a little bit, but ultimately knew that like this was a better thing in terms of just his stability. And it's a really sweet gig, by the way, too.
I've been the one who's been basically making my living off of working on Tome exclusively. I'm pretty much the only member of the team who's been doing it like that, and it's been a big help. At the same time, it's not exactly it's how to put it. It's not a ton of money, Mm-hmm. It's not incredibly sustainable, and come a couple of months from now, I was gonna have to be looking for other employment anyway. Mm-hmm. That's not something that anyone was excited about, obviously, but it's kind of just a reality of the situation when you're working on a bit of a shoestring budget.
Oh, just to clarify real quick, because Soccer and I's had some concerns. No, it's not. That's not out of any concern of like people complaining or anything. It's more of just on our sense of like we want to keep people informed as much as possible, because just we feel that that's the right thing to do. It's not because anybody was being any sort of uncooperative or ununderstanding or anything like that. Like, people have actually been wonderful about everything, and all of your guys in the Tome fandom and otherwise, support has been wonderful, and we really, really appreciate that. So don't get the wrong idea. It's more of just like we just like for people to be informed about like things that we feel are important. So
it's not that people have been complaining about our Kickstarter at all. Like, I feel like we've managed to foster a really, really positive community around this thing.
Yeah.
In fact, yeah, I don't recall a single incident of anybody expressing discontent. Maybe that's me being relatively sheltered from the PR end of things compared with like Chris or something.
No, honestly, really, all I tend to get is like, when is it coming out? To which I always have, and to which I always have an answer of like, our goal is 2020. That has always been our goal since the beginning, and we are hopefully going to stay on track with that. We still don't know when in 2020, but that has always been the intention, is to release the game in the year that it takes place in.
Yeah.
But, no, the thing is, we are familiar with other Kickstarters. We are familiar with the trepidation around Kickstarter culture. There were pitfalls in Kickstarter-based development that we made it a mission to avoid in terms of our own like internal management kind of stuff. And so a big part of our eagerness to maintain transparency comes from having this knowledge that, Kickstarters kind of make people nervous sometimes.
And I mean, one other thing to add, I guess, is one thing that we're always sort of internally, like, kind of like, really proud of, actually, is pretty much our internal pipeline. Like, we have that thing hammered out where, and I've said this, like, to the team a lot, but, like as far as, like, getting the content into the game goes, getting everything balanced, getting all of Chris's, sprites in and everything, that's been smooth as butter, basically. The only, as far as, like, internal challenges go, it's always been kind of just a matter of, like, Mike, how would you describe it? It's kind of like, the texture issue we talked about earlier is, like, kind of one example of it. But, I mean, once we have all the systems in place, things, like, really just kind of click into place, and it's, been a really positive experience to work on that.
I just have a button that re-imports all of the scenes in the game. So if you guys change anything in any of these scenes for any reason, if you want to change a mark for a cutscene, if you want to add some scenery, or if something is not processed right in the first place and we get, Chris, you were talking about a couple of scenery object kind of issues in the bug sheet. Mm-hmm. All I have to do is rearrange things a little bit, get the import system fixed for that specific issue, and then hit the import button, and it will just rebuild every scene that has that issue.
It's pretty magical. I'm not going to lie.
Like, once this Chapter 1 build is pretty much cemented in terms of your ability to complete it without hitting any, like, soft locks or other showstoppers, basically, we're going to be able to import chapters like 2 and 3 like really, really quickly.
Yeah, comparatively, which is awesome.
The pipeline for this just runs nice and smooth.
Yeah.
It's a delicious pipeline. There's a lot of work I've done where people have the misconception that it's like, oh, you could just press a button and it'll fix that, right? In most cases, no, that's absolutely not the case. Yeah. But in this case, Mike has done an incredible amount of work to just make everything as easy as possible for, like, me, Chris, and Nathan to implement. So
honestly, it blows my mind that even though, like, I didn't quite manage to hit the state that I wanted to be by the end of the month, the fact that, like, because for one thing, I met my goal of wanting to get virtually all of the character animation and visual assets and everything done by the end of 2018, which I did. We had pretty much all the levels fully constructed and built and good to go by the end of the first quarter of this year. And excuse me, with a little bit of additional time needed. I'm about to have at least a pass of all of the cutscene choreography, the in-game cutscene stuff, done within the first half of this year. And that last thing in particular has gone so mind-blowingly quickly because of the setup that Michael has given us, where literally, I can just do everything I need to do in like a matter of hours or a couple days, depending on like how much stuff takes place in a particular level or whatever. And it's pretty incredible. Like it's the thing that like, it's one of the major things that always like reassures me of like, oh, we're going to get this done. Despite the fact that we're a tiny ass team of 4 people with a bunch of freelancers, and we're making a like Legend of the Seven Stars length RPG, we're going to get it done. And it's insane. So I don't know.
The biggest snags that I deal with, Chris, are if you make a typo in a localization sheet. That is the worst problem that can possibly happen.
Oh no, I wrote flame Gale instead of flame girl. Have actually done that a couple times and had to catch myself.
Every now and again, you use a period instead of a comma. Oh no, and then I correct it, re-import it, and it's fixed.
Magic. We are, by the way, down to about 17 minutes left on the auction. Still at 770 with the same person in the lead, but still some time left. I'm mayhaps expecting some snipes to come up soon. We shall see, because this often is the case with eBay. But yeah. So I guess all in all, we have been very hard at work since 2019 started. This has been a bit of a crazy-ass year for all of us for various reasons, and despite all that, we've persevered and kicked a lot of ass, and I'm really proud of everybody, and and not just the core team, but also all of our freelancers, all the musicians, the background artists, all the the writing assistants, just anybody and everybody who's contributed anything to this project so far. Has been doing amazingly, and I'm really grateful. And and like I say all the time, I'm grateful to all of you guys listening, whether you're watching this right now or you're seeing an archive of this later. We could not be able to do this without you all. I know I sound like a broken record when I go through all that stuff, but I hope you don't mind. I really try to give you all as many kudos as I can for everything. I guess in this last little 15 minutes or so before the auction closes up, if anybody in the chat has any questions about things, I do feel the need to reinstate, we cannot give spoilers. So if you ask, like, is this character going to show up? Is this character going to be in the thing? We're not going to answer that. I don't know why people continually want spoilers. I don't understand that. But yeah, if you have any questions for us in general, let us know. Corona asked, how do y'all feel that 2020 is less than halfway there already? I can't believe it. It's really bizarre, but also I feel like the last several years have been kind of flying by quicker than I could have imagined. So, but the fact that, like, for me personally, it's really crazy because 2020 was always how I projected the year of Tome to take place in, like, since like the original TTA version, like years and years ago, and now it's like, oh yeah, that's happening. We're here, and it's not massively far off in terms of like how like say virtual reality gaming stuff has come along as well, which is pretty funny. So,
let's see. This is more of a fun question. Have we made any courses in Super Mario Maker 2 yet? No, I've been too busy working on Tome Maker 1.
Yeah, I would love to pick it up. Unfortunately, I probably shouldn't dedicate much time to it right now because I need to work, and I know I will be absolutely lost in it. However, my friend Andrew Dickman, shout out to him if you follow him at AWDTwit. He's going to be making some Mario Maker 2 levels. He's already been putting a few out, and he wants to hold a party where me and a bunch of my friends come over and play his probably very masochistic Mario levels. So I'm excited for that.
Let me see here.
Scott,
So,
what? Oh, go ahead.
Yeah, you first, Mike.
Sakura Knights asks, any plans for bug spotters or beta players?
You mean in terms of like real life or in the story of the game? I'm actually curious on either one of that.
I think she means real life, like actual beta players for our game.
We're not 100% sure if we're gonna give out beta builds or anything like that in the future. That might be a possibility, but that will be dependent on a lot of things later this year. So stay tuned. Who knows?
If something like that does happen, it'll probably be it'll either be a limited build where we like do chapter one or a couple of days out of chapter one, because I know people have been wanting something playable for a little while just to wet their whistles.
Yeah.
Or else it'll be something later in the year or early next year or something like that, when we've gotten more of the cosmetic issues, I think, settled. I feel like there are some weird dynamics with the way that public beta backers would expect this type of project to work in terms of like a beta build. Like, on one hand, you're interested in helping us out, which is really cool. And our experiences when we put up the public demo for the Kickstarter with people reporting bugs were really, really good.
Yes, tremendously. So thank you guys for that.
Like there were not a whole lot of people complaining about the shape that was in, or anything like that. Mostly people were just very, very helpful. On the other hand, I can't help but feel myself like if you backed this game and you're getting a build of any kind, it should be something that is at least trying to be presentable.
Yeah.
It should at least be something that represents what we're aiming at with the thing that you paid money to play. It not by any means the final product, since it would be a beta build and the purpose would be to help us find bugs. But if you're gonna look at it, if you're gonna share screenshots of it, if you're gonna hope for this thing to be satisfying to you as a player, we should make sure that it's at least approaching that kind of shape.
For sure.
Right now, we are in what I would call like an alpha state, or an early alpha state. Beta will happen whenever we get content complete and freeze a lot of stuff.
We are down to about 11 minutes left. We're now at 780. We got a new highest bidder. I'm going to rapid fire a couple of these. Nani Cat asked if I go to conventions. I'll be at Anime Expo on the 4th of July to go see the Mewtwo Strikes Back Evolution screening there. Neon Striver asked, do you guys feel like it's possible to get the game ready for 2020? I would certainly think so. I don't care if it's January 1st or December 31st, 2020, but I think that it'll definitely be within that year. Coda Swords and Fightsmen, are you guys going to do more contests for our characters to get in the game, or is this the last one? This will not be the last one. I would love to do something for the anniversary in November. We're actually trying to come up with some other ideas for what to do for some of the future events, for giving people opportunities. Because after this one, there will be 2 other open slots for the fully animated enemy characters. So we'll see if we'll be able to accommodate something for the last 2 and figure out what we can do. If you guys have any suggestions or anything, please let us know. Scott, this is a good question for you. Wilkins Motley asked, do the $200 tier backers drop special items?
Basically, the way the game is constructed right now, most of the backers will be dropping money. They'll be kind of guarding or in proximity of better items, but because of some of the stuff we're trying out, we kind of wanted to have sort of a consistency with them. Even the player boss characters don't really drop like specific items. After all, like the concession of the game is that you're fighting against other players who exist in the world with you. So only sort of the super bosses really drop like power-ups or items, or like power-ups or sort of like the more expensive use items. However, in keeping that's kind of like the concession for the game world. They'll be in proximity to better items that will, kind of be the how do I put it? Sort of the stand-in for like them dropping it directly. So the answer is like technically no, but also yes. Also, you're going to be like you'll have a chance to encounter those items. So
Yeah, and there will be some particularly special things when it comes to the plot relevance characters as well, and we'll have some more details on that in the future. Sakura Knights and Cloud Lightning asked about if there's going to be a day-night system. Not quite, but there will be a day system in a different kind of way. We've gone into this a little bit before, but basically each level takes place on a different day over the course of a full month. The game's story takes place over the course of a month in not real time, but like within like an in-universe of the game's like world time, I guess you could say. It's hard to explain, but you'll see. It's kind of interesting. It was one of the things that I kind of prided myself off in terms of branding. Like the progression of the game is unique, and I hope you guys like how that turns out. Let's see. 2002 Dashed asked about some sound effects. We actually haven't spent too much time on sound stuff yet, beyond just integrating the music. But we do have somebody lined up for doing sound effects that we're excited to work with, and we'll probably have like a whole list of like 7 million different things we need to ask them.
We actually do have an asset list of sound effects that like
request. Yeah.
We made the list based on the move list and the overworld events a little while ago. It has been a minute since we've like done anything with it, but we do have like an inventory of it.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's fairly typical for sound effects to get implemented a little bit late on a production like this.
Yeah.
And it's somewhat unfortunate some of the time, but our sound needs are pretty well pinned down at the release. And to answer that question directly, we do have the capability of like varying the pitch programmatically for a given sound effect.
Mm-hmm.
Which can go a long way for file saving. So file space saving. Yeah.
So if you want to go bum 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 like that with successive hits, you could do that.
Yeah, and that's technically one sound effect, and you just that's an old N64 and era trick for a lot of the Banjo-Kazooie sounds. Those of you who don't know, actually. Zalno Lombax, thank you very much for contributing directly to New Alternatives. Much appreciated. Let's see. Again, if you guys want to check out newalternativesnyc.org or follow them on twitter.com/newalternatives, please check them out. They're a wonderful charity cause. Let's see. Any plans to release the OST for purchase? Yes, absolutely. The OST, the original soundtrack of the Tome game, is going to be outstanding. Every time I get a new track from any of the musicians we're working with, it's like Christmas. It's incredible.
I keep routinely like hearing one of these tracks after a couple of weeks of not really listening to, because like I'll be, this is a dirty little secret, not secret of a lot of video games, but we tend to do our playtesting with this stuff on mute. So every now and again, I will unmute and hear music that somebody has put in, or Chris will share one of these tracks, and I will go like, "Oh my god, our soundtrack is really good."
Yeah, and we've had some special guest musicians join on as well that we haven't announced yet that have been doing amazing work, and of course our 4 lead musicians for each of the 4 regions that we announced in our first monthly update for 2019 have been doing an amazing job as well. So look forward to that. We might preview some more music in the future, perhaps, but yeah, the OST is going to be really kicking. Coda Swords and Fightsman, are you going to do a live stream of playing the game, or are you going to live stream and launch the launch of the game? I'm sure when we get closer to actual release, we will have some plans for that. I've actually played around with even maybe having like a full playthrough of the game on my channel, and like have that kind of diced up into like episodes or something. But we'll see. We'll see what happens with that, because that might change. We're down to the final 5 minutes. Still at 780 is the highest bid. See what happens. Lonely Mimikyu, did I name Orange Island after the second season of the Pokemon anime? Not fully intentionally. It just kind of worked out that way. I was trying to come up with, because if you guys haven't noticed, each of the 4 regions have been kind of, their naming schemes are based around sort of different specific things. So like Adatus Woods is based around mushrooms and fungus. fungi rather, and then Morganite Valley after crystals and gemstones, Telluria City after metals, and then Orange Island after fruits. And I also wanted to have each of the things, the first letter of each of those regions be after a letter of Tome, T-O-M-E. So when it came to the O region, I was like, well, there's orange. I'll just make it the Orange Island instead of the Orange Islands or Orange Archipelago, so it's not fully ripping it off. But Linkar Rocksta, how did I feel about the Rost Forest Club? It was excellent. Big shout out to Sir Lenward and all the amazing folks who worked on that. It was lovely to be part of that as well. We're up to 790. This is going to come down to probably a lot of back and forth $10 donations, I think.
Let's see. 3 minutes, 24 seconds.
Mm-hmm. Hero Dragobot. I don't know if I can ask this. How many areas will each level have? I would say roughly about 5 or 6, give or take, depending. Some of them are like smaller things like hub towns and the little mini areas like that. But then there's at least like 3 or 4 different like full levels in each one, I would say.
And there are some levels that are like maybe the size of a neighborhood. Well,
yeah.
No, let me put it this way. There are some very, very large levels, too, where, like, a single room takes a lot to get through.
Yeah.
We've got one area in Chapter 1 that's got, like, 21 rooms in it. That's a pretty sizable area.
May or may not be our equivalent of perhaps a forest maze type situation, hint, hint.
There's one in Chapter 2 that's got 13 rooms. There's one with 11 rooms. You might be shortchanging yourself a little bit, Chris. Some of these are pretty sizable.
White Oak is each location based off a Net King. Not so much based off of, but they share a theme with their Net King in terms of the 4 major elemental alignments that we have for each of the for the game and everything. So. Down to, all right, 2 minutes. Down to 2 minutes here.
Let's see here.
It's been kind of a back and forth. Let's hold off on questions for just a little bit, just to keep an eye on this.
Fair enough.
Excuse me. Thank you guys very much to, I think we've had a good like 10 to 15 different bidders over the course of everything. Thank you guys very much for doing such. Excuse me. All right, down to the last minute. Who's going to get it? By the way, Michael and Scott, thank you guys very much for spending your Sunday morning with overseeing this.
Afternoon, as a matter of fact.
Afternoon, pardon me. All right.
You're very welcome, though.
Less than a minute. Less than a minute. Still at 790. Who's going to get it? Will it cross 800? We shall see. Boot it up.
Background phone.
How dare you?
Background phone to hearken in the last 30 seconds.
30 seconds. All right.
I keep thinking that's my phone. It's not.
20 seconds. And all right. 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, and sold for $790. Thank you all so much. All right. To the lucky winner, we will be in touch with you very soon. Thank you very, very much. Half of the proceeds, of course, are going to be donated to New Alternatives. Check out newalternativesnyc.org for more info. We'll be donating $395 to them. Thank you all very, very much. Appreciate it. Guys, do you wanna go for a little bit longer? Maybe answer some more questions or hang out for a bit, or should we maybe start wrapping it up?
I can answer a couple more questions, but I do have some other things I got to get to. I got a dog that needs walking.
Okay. And Scott, you had to go around this time, I think, too. Yeah.
Yeah. I can stick around for like 2 or 3 more
Sure,
questions.
sure. Hero Dragobot asked, I don't know if this was already asked, will there be ways to avoid enemy fighters, like the way we would avoid Pokemon trainers in battle? We have thus far set it up that you have to fight every single one of the backup characters within the main campaign. You can avoid monster enemies on the overworld, but you cannot avoid fighting the player characters since we want to make sure that you'll get to progress through fighting as many characters as possible, and for the sake of your growth within the game. So we'll be announcing. Well, you'll find out, I guess, who the winner's character is. I don't know if we'll be announcing the winner themselves, but look forward to a future animation stream once we get their info and find out what their character is and everything. So you'll find out soon enough.
Let's see. Somebody asked. Let me see if I can find who's asked this. Somebody asked if there was going to be an art book.
I would love to do something like that someday, but that is a kind of an expensive venture in and unto itself. So we'll see. I have thought about it before. I've thought about it for the series as well, but who knows? We'll see someday, perhaps.
Putting together like a digital art book wouldn't be. I mean, I guess that'd be really time consuming at least.
Yeah.
In a sense, time is money. But
Yeah.
we do have a lot of material that we could show. I'll say that.
Oh, Adam, I think is offering some expertise on that. Perhaps we'll see. Tommy Walden asked, "Will there be DLC?" We would like to do DLC in the future, if the game is successful and it warrants it and there's a demand for it. We certainly have ideas, but right now we are primarily focusing on just getting the main game story done. Same thing with we don't have any plans for a new game plus or anything, but so we're focusing on just getting like the core game done. But
we have debated a little bit about what a potential DLC chapter could entail. So we've got an idea of what we would do, provided that the demand for it does end up existing when the full game comes out. But we haven't really dedicated resources to like preemptively building it. If it gets built, it's going to be built after the main game is already released. We're not going to have it like lined up.
Yeah. Well, I would say we can start to wrap things up. I did want to share some stuff with everybody real quick while I have you guys and while the chat's still around. So if my memory is correct, as of tomorrow, I moved to California 5 whole years ago. I've been here since 4th of July weekend, 2014, and it has been an absolutely crazy ride. I've gotten to do a whole lot of things. I've had a wonderful voiceover career flourish. I got to finish the TOME web series. I got to work with a lot of different really amazing people on other projects. And then, I had the good fortune of meeting these 2 guys right here, along with Nathan, on another project previously. And when they were receptive to working together on this project, it just put me over the goddamn moon. And I still pinch myself every day that like this is what I get to do. That like my life gets to be making the thing that I'm passionate about and that like I care about. It's truly incredible, and like I said, it's been a crazy entire time since I've been out here, and some folks who may or may not be wondering about the fact that we are donating half of the proceeds to the New Alternatives charity. The other half is going into the game's budget, but something that I've never actually spoken about publicly before, and don't really see any harm in sharing with at this point, is and as these guys can attest, I haven't touched a cent of the Kickstarter money. Since we raised the incredible $100,000 when we first launched the campaign in fall of 2017, the entirety of that money has gone to the crew. Primarily, of course, to Mike, Nathan, and Scott for their hours and hours and hours and hours of work. However, I have not touched a cent of that money. I've been very fortunate that I've been able to make a living off of this voiceover stuff, which I'm going to continue to do, hopefully, and and freelance stuff and YouTube ad rev and those kind of things, and because I've tried to basically give back the goodwill that these guys have given me, and we've all had tough times. We've all had a lot of, really, really crazy things that have happened and kind of unexpected stuff hit us. Even literally I can remember, I was reminiscing on, when I first moved to LA, the week that I moved to LA 5 whole years ago now, I was under an extreme amount of pressure for a lot of different things all kind of hitting me at once. And not to get massively bummery here, but it was probably one of the most depressing points of my life, and was not a good state for me to be in. But thankfully, I was surrounded that week by virtually all of my closest friends in the world. And they were all there to support me, and they were all there to help lift me up. And then, within the span of that first year, we managed to finish the TOME web series. And at that following Anime Expo in 2015, of course, we had the big screening, and all the cast came out, and it was an incredible experience. And then within the rest of 2015, I worked with Mike, Scott, and Nathan on another project. We all got to hit it off pretty well. We've all gotten to be really good friends. And then, of course, we did GDC about a year ago, and that was the first time we all got to hang out together, and it was wonderful. And I know I've talked about this before, but I mean the whole kind of the eventual leading to choosing to do an RPG for making a TOME video game, after having played with the idea of doing that for years and years, since like the TTA days. The choice of making it an RPG is because it is, of course, a story-focused genre of video game. I care about telling stories, and the reason that I care about telling stories is because I care about wanting to make as much of a positive impact on people as much as humanly possible. And, with how hard we've worked and how far we've come with everything, and kind of looking back on the story that we've written, I'm really hoping that even if this game is not a gigantic runaway success, I'm not expecting it to do gangbusters and be a huge thing necessarily. If it is, then that'll be a wonderful bonus surprise. But we're doing it because this is a project that we care about, something that we're passionate about, and I'm hoping that even for the however many people play through the whole thing and get anything out of it that enriches their lives and takes any kind of positivity out of it, and enjoys the journey with these characters and everything. That's all I need, and that's enough for me. And so, thank you all again very much for supporting us. And I don't know, Mike and Scott, I went on for like 30 years. If you guys have any other things you want to share.
When I came back to Illinois a couple of years ago, that was definitely a low point for me as well. That was, that was my father dealing with health issues, my mom dealing with health issues, and being able to work on this project full time up to this point has enabled me to be there for them. And they're both fortunately in a nice, stable place right now. But if I hadn't been here, I don't know. I hate to, take any credit for how well they're doing now, but I don't know what they would have done if I hadn't been here to pick things up for them, like literally lift objects. So I want to give my thanks not just to all the backers who funded us and made it possible for me to sustain a living, however modest it might have ended up being for the sake of budgeting this project. I also want to thank you, Chris, for making that possible, for building this project and inviting me into the story that you're telling, and giving me the chance to help out with it as much as I've been able to. It's been incredibly enriching so far see your stuff come to life, and not literally see your eyes light up when you see stuff working, but figuratively at least.
Yeah, it's been quite a journey. Like for 2.5 years, it's probably going to be close to like 3 or 4, depending on how long the full development process will go. But I like, even with whatever things ever come my way, if whatever hardships or unexpected bad things that happen throughout, like I try to never take for granted that like I get to wake up and I'm like, oh cool, I get to work on a thing that I created that is mine, that I love like every day. Like that is not something that I take lightly and ever try to take for granted, and I owe it to you guys, to everybody out there who's contributed and supported, in any way possible. And I hope that what we all collectively give back to you and to the world and whatever is worth it, and brings anybody any kind of joy and all that mushy crap that I'm having massive difficulty with putting into words. But Scott, you got anything? I don't know. Take me away from this.
Man, after you guys put it the best, I think. I think that I just wanted to say to everyone at the stream, thanks for coming out today, spending your time with us. And I think that's pretty much it on my part.
Sweet. All right. Well, one last plug I'll give to New Alternatives, who will be contributing half of the final total of the auction too. New Alternatives is a New York-based charity function that increases the self-sufficiency of LGBTQ plus homeless youth by enabling them to transition out of the shelter system to stable adult lives by providing long-term support, weekly case management, education services, life skills training, community building, recreational activities, opportunities for self-expression, and programs for HIV plus youth, with guiding principles centered around harm reduction, youth development, and empowerment. Check out their website for more information, newalternativesnyc.org. You can follow them on Twitter, @newalternatives. And we'll be, as soon as we get the money in from the eBay auction, we'll be contributing to them. And so thank you very much. If the winner is still listening, the winner of the auction will be in touch with you very soon if you're listening. Thank you very much. Thank you to everybody who bid on the auction as well. Stay tuned for future updates. We haven't quite figured out what we're going to do for the July update just yet, since moving is crazy and makes us busy. But we've got plenty of other fun stuff planned for the rest of the year, so stay tuned. And we will see you all on the battle grid. Bye.